The Batman is perfection, straight up. Love it through and through. And after rewatching some of my favorite scenes over and over and over again, I've come to the realization that, bro, a Nightwing movie would go so hard. I've thought about this for a while, but kind of felt like it would not happen in my lifetime. We had the Chris McKay movie in the works, then that got canned, then James Gunn did some announcements about a Bat family showing up in the new Brave and the Bold movie, and then we got a Dick Grayson and Jason Todd animated live-action crossbreed project in the works. It seems that the chances of getting a Nightwing movie off the ground is more likely than ever before. And it's so insane to me how many Batman movies we've gotten, but they've been so keen on not putting him in any of the movies. Okay, the Batman has been out for a bit over 2 years now, and it's received so much praise from so many people. And I'll be another person to add on to that list. The grungy aesthetic and the dirty fight scenes go hand in hand in making this Gotham City and Batman stand out in its own unique way. It manages to stay true to the character while making things feel new. And the best part of it all? It actually lays an interesting foundation for a Robin and potentially Nightwing. Listen, I love all the Robins. Robin himself inspired me as a kid. I dressed up as him for Halloween when I was 10, I wore my underwear on the outside for the fit. I don't have the pictures of the costume anymore to prove it, but you just gotta believe me. It was the Robin from Rise of Sin Tzu. Good game, by the way, you should play it, 7 out of 10. But I think expecting to see all of the Robins is a bit too ambitious. After seeing the first movie, it seems like a natural progression for this story to want to include a Robin. So I'm assuming they're going to just do one Robin, if any at all in this universe, and it's probably going to be Dick Grayson. Robin, for me, was the role model superhero. From sidekick to becoming someone of his own identity. We literally watched him grow up from being a kid to an adult. It's something that kind of made me feel a bit sad that we haven't seen him in such a long time in favor of this realistic take on Batman, which I love. But here's the thing though. The idea of adding someone like Robin, at least in my opinion, adds another layer of realism. I know, it's a little weird to see this little boy be put in front of gunfire and be essentially in harm's way all the time. It looked really bad on Batman's part, especially seeing it on screen. Batman in the comics was trained by ninja assassins. In this version, he was trained by Alfred. Not sure if he also got assassin training on top of that, but from what we've been told, it's mainly been by Alfred. Having Bruce want to teach this kid, someone he is the guardian of and someone he sees a lot of his younger self in, how to fight, the same way his guardian taught him, it just makes sense for him to want to do so. This first Batman movie is super big on the idea of hope and how Batman can become better and inspire others. Robin is the physical realization of the hope Batman wants to inspire. He is that kid that is completely lost in this world, whose world turned upside down when his parents died and has nowhere to go. The craziest part is, we've seen a storyline with a similar context before. Iron Man and Spider-Man have a movie-exclusive father-son dynamic in the MCU, and honestly, I feel like they took a lot of inspiration from the Batman and Robin relationships in the comics. It's not a bad thing, I mean it worked, right? Batman and Robin are super iconic. And though Spider-Man is clearly not Robin, they've got some key differences in terms of power scaling and abilities. Similar concepts and themes run parallel with both of their stories. The reason it's easier to believe Iron Man would recruit Spider-Man over Batman wanting to recruit a really small boy to fight crime with no powers is because of just that. Spider-Man's got superhuman strength and durability. It's not so irresponsible for Iron Man to allow Spider-Man to fight aliens, because he can catch falling cars and survive buildings falling on top of him. With Robin, it's a bit of a different story. He's a kid who is really good at karate and can do a lot of flips. And this is the excuse that's been used time and time again. It's the reason why we haven't seen him in movies for over 20 years. Because he's just a kid and he doesn't have any powers. He's like Batman but smaller and weaker. That's where I wanted to focus the point on though. Focusing more on the he's like Batman and less on the but weaker. Having Robin be an actual kid in these movies does come with its limitations. Because at some point you might as well say he's got powers if he's beating 7'2" dudes in the parking lot. Bruce is a very strong dude, and we've seen that from this movie. I think having Robin rely more so on his equipment, specifically his staff, or even him using eskrima sticks this early on would be a great way to differentiate the two, and not them just be two palette swaps of one another when they're in action. Batman is a very heavy equipment user, but in hand-to-hand fight scenes, he can get very brutal with his punches. For Robin, in this case, think more bullseye action scenes from Daredevil. Robin's keeping away from his enemies since he knows he will be outmatched strength-wise by the adults. I was of the camp that maybe they could do what they did with Bucky in the MCU. He is basically Marvel's Robin, a kid's sidekick to Captain America in the comics, who then was aged up when he became the Winter Soldier. In the MCU, he was always an adult, and he was simply Steve's best friend instead of sidekick. It works in service of that story they told, but here, after thinking about it for a while, I honestly really would prefer if they went with a teenage Robin, because it's such an important element in mirroring Batman's history when his parents died when he was young. But yeah, I think having Robin be a more ranged character, at least in the very beginning when he's still super young, would be a more believable approach, given that this is a very realistic take on Batman. Acting as sort of like Batman's in-person warning beacon for the bad guys can actually play up that sense of creepiness and hysteria. Batman lurking in the shadows in that first movie, in the opening scene alone was mind-blowing. Adding Robin to the mix would only dial that up if we did this in this way. Because when Robin's there, the criminals know Batman's there too, but they don't know where he is. They could even play with the fact that when Robin gets older, he becomes an adult, he becomes a lot stronger, he fights more hand to hand, gets closer in range, he gets confronted by Batman for wanting to fight people head on, Batman disagrees, and they go their separate ways because of it. Maybe when he first starts out, Robin is sort of like a hacker, or he helps play up the theatrics in helping him scare the bad guys. Cutting the lights out, the guy in the background who helps Batman do all the heavy lifting, and then gradually, his time in the field actually becomes more significant, and he slowly starts becoming more of a fighter, someone with his own style and way of doing things. I think it'd be really compelling too to see how Batman's fear tactic does not work the same way for Dick Grayson. He isn't as intimidating as Batman is, unfortunately, and it takes him a bit of time to realize this. Then, as he's transitioning to becoming Nightwing, he starts relying more on using a mix of stealth and acrobatics, something more along the lines of his specialty. This gives a symbolic reasoning as to why he changed from red to blue too, symbolizing less of his reliance on anger and fear, and more so gravitating towards themes of inspiration and healing. Don't get me wrong, Batman himself is a character who does experience character growth and evolves over time. That's actually part of the reason why he takes on Robin. It's the realization that he does not have to do this alone, and that he can still have a family while committing to his lifelong mission. But it's in this same sense that everything he does is in service of his higher mission, that I think having these two side by side, they'd really complement one another, and the different ways that they do things. Most Batman narratives are confined within the context of Bruce reliving that night in Crime Alley over and over again. He is able to love, he's capable of having his own family, but his story is always framed in a way that he's haunted by the death of his parents. Nightwing, on the other hand, does not have that. Maybe at first, yeah. But he represents Bruce without any of the weight of his past. He's not as paranoid, he's more trusting. He's more friendly, he works as an amazing team leader. A Nightwing story has the flexibility to explore stories beyond the framework of his parents' death. If the Batman movie focuses on stories about hope, then a Nightwing movie should focus on change. Dick Grayson represents the importance of growth and change. Someone whose world turned upside down and was barreling towards the same path Bruce went down, but was averted after working with him for years and seeing what he could become, both the good and the bad. In all honesty, I adore the Batman for being its own self-contained story, away from the new line of DCU movies. But following up with this with a spin-off movie series farther down the line with a Nightwing movie would just make a lot of sense. That lingering feeling of hope left behind at the end of the first movie just feels like the perfect setup towards the path of introducing a character like Dick Grayson. He is the perfect character in this universe in that he is the result of the hope that Batman inspired. Nightwing is the ultimate goodness that was inspired by Bruce's hope. He is the symbol of moving on. This applies in a general sense too, because the idea of a Robin is just the natural progression to Bruce's story. Even Christopher Nolan, a guy who vowed to not include a Robin in any of his Batman movies, included a Robin at the end of his trilogy. Well, at least a version of it, kinda. Because that's just where the story naturally feels like it's supposed to go. Action-wise, naturally we would be getting more visually stunning choreography, fully equipped with jumps, flips, dips, triple sow cows, the whole 9 yards. I still believe the most impressive Batman fight scene we saw was the one from Batman v Superman. That warehouse scene was the most agile I've ever seen a move. Nightwing's got his Eskrima sticks, so we would definitely see him using those, but I really want them to show how Nightwing really uses his acrobatics to his advantage. Where Batman usually punches a lot, maybe we can have Nightwing throwing kicks more often. You know, it's insane to me that despite all of the comic book characters who are supposed to be acrobatic, they aren't really shown to use kicks that often. All we have is Cap and Black Panther. I gotta say, this one's a little disgusting. He did not need to use that much force. Damn, dude. I want them to go crazy with this Nightwing choreography. I want to see a high movie budget Daredevil hallway fight. I want to feel like this dude is flying. I want to see him do the Liu Kang bicycle kick with a full ass meter burn implemented into it. Tonally, things would be different. Something that's definitely more lighter and less structured around tragedy than a Batman movie, but also still deeply rooted in the human part of Nightwing. Maybe we can explore his rough relationship with Batman, how they don't see eye to eye, or maybe his struggles with being leader of the Teen Titans. Depending on when or where this story is set, it could be in his early years as Nightwing, or later down the line, mid-career, who knows. But his willingness to want to work with others and eagerness to lead others is something I don't think we've gotten much of lately, especially in the Batman universe, or universes in the movies. The kind of aura exuded by Nightwing should feel pretty distinct. Less brooding, more outgoing. Less sadness, more warmth. I hope this doesn't make it sound like I hate Batman. I don't. I love this version specifically. What I'm trying to say is that having these two different perspectives to achieve the same goal makes things more interesting, and the kind of message people take away from a character like this in a Batman story, I think would be pretty fresh too. Power doesn't have to come from pain, it can come from healing. I'm pretty happy we could potentially see two different Dick Graysons in the movies, one in the Batman universe, and then one in the DCU. I have not been this excited for DC movies, or even superhero movies, in a long, long time. I know it's strange to say because The Joker 2 just came out. I didn't watch it, but I've been hearing a lot of weird stuff about that movie. Nightwing is my favorite character, and I'm praying they do him justice. Oh, also, hi. I know it's been a while. I hope you're doing well. I don't know how often I'll be doing this, but this was actually kind of fun again.